name's Allon Follett. I'm the writer of the book Journey to Immortality. This is a brief rundown of what the book's about. It was written a few years ago now. Basically started in 1990, finished in about 2007, and has been edited a few times since then. So the online version is quite good. It hasn't got any spelling mistakes like the early ones did. And it's quite a spectacular book, if I do say so myself. It was written based upon another book called The OASP, which I think has unfairly not been talked about very much. It's a brilliant book. But The OASP was written in Middle English or Old English, so it's very hard to concentrate on it. Very long book, written in Old English dialect of thou and thee and thus and hither and all those sort of old-fashioned words that people don't really relate to anymore. So I've taken sections of that book and put them into my book and sort of jazzed it up a bit, make it a bit more modern. So my book is basically a book inside a book inside a book. It starts off with the main hero of the story, Jeff T., or his full name, Jefferson Thomas, who is an American, and who's unhappy with his life, how things have panned out for him, and so he decides to go on an adventure to basically find his life purpose and to live a more fulfilling life. And various things happen to him along the way. And so that's the first section of the book. Then the book skips forward to 150 years further on in the future, 2140, around that time period. And then we see the effects of global warming and the collapse of the economy, and basically that mythical time when the Earth's population has somehow been reduced. And so all the rich people are somehow getting to live that utopian life they all hoped would happen after the world's been depopulated. It doesn't actually work out too well because the world's still overheating. Global warming is, in fact, a reality. It's still in present day when I'm speaking to you now. Global warming hasn't been 100% proven, so people tend to be in denial of that. But maybe there is no global warming, in which case, I'll be happy about that. And but I have my doubts that it isn't happening. So that's the second part of the book, and in that part, some young country people discover some city people, and together they go on an adventure into outer space, and this is where the book's main story takes place on the spaceship that leaves planet Earth with the last remaining people on Earth, and the ship's called Ship 42. Then out in the depths of space, they have a bit of a space opera, space drama, 16 of them living on the ship together with the rest of the crew in suspended animation. And that's the third part of the book. So the first book is like a man in the 21st century, and then the second book is like the future in the 22nd century, and then the third book within a book is when there is an event on the ship. I won't tell you too much about it. When you get to hear about the OASP, which is like the third book within a book within a book, and that's in the fourth section of my book. It's 550 pages. I consider it's quite action-packed. It just keeps going from one event to the next. It's not sort of long drawn-out descriptions. It's keeps the reader interested, I believe, all the way through. It's not your regular science fiction book either, though it has a lot of science fiction references, things that haven't been talked about in other science fiction books, as far as I know of, which is what a lot of science buffs would be interested in, like in the fusion sun in the middle of the ship, which is now actually, I believe, the BBC saying that they can make a fusion reactor similar to the one that's in the ship. So on a science level, it's quite interesting, but unlike a lot of science books, this particular book is not written from the point of view of the atheist. Most science fiction, and a lot of books today, in a lot of different genres, are atheist-based. They are based upon the fact that we can't prove that there is a God or an afterlife, and therefore it's dismissed as being unproven, therefore not good to consider it reality. My book is quite different in that regard, in that I consider that the afterlife is a definite fact, that there is some sort of afterlife. I've made my theory of what it is. I've assumed that it happens in a certain way, and I may be proven wrong, yet I've done many years of research into the spiritual dimension. I've had a lot of training in that regard, and so I consider that I have some authority to talk on the subject. So my book is written with any science fiction adding to the whole idea that there is an afterlife. So it's very much looking at the afterlife as being a fact. But it's just a fictional book. I'm not trying to prove that the afterlife is there. I'm not trying to push my opinion on people. It's a fictional book. You can believe it or not. It's even if you were an atheist, if you read this book, you would find it interesting. Even just to say that here's a contrary point of view to the general atheist point of view. Atheists, I think, nowadays are pretty smug in thinking that they're right and the believers are wrong and God is dead and all that sort of thing. Well, this may make you think twice about that, because this book is quite compelling in its information. There's a mountain of information that points that there may in fact be a God after all, and a heaven, and a infinite heaven at that. It also goes into the theory that the Big Bang is not in fact true. But there'll be more about that in my second and third books, because it's a trilogy. But the first book is a complete book in itself. It's even got a bit of romance in there, and a few cunning twists. So, I hope you enjoy it. Links to the book are in the section below. Please thumb up and subscribe, and thanks for listening.